Lab number 25. In this lab we will continue development of our CNN application and we'll focus on integration parts. So now is the right time to grab data from the backend. And in our case the backend will be the CNN RSS feed. So if we'll just open the browser and type CNN RSS, we will see actually the first link in Google that will lead us to the description of available RSS feeds. And basically the way how it works, we should grab the specific feed that we want. For example, for world news we should grab edition world RSS, for top stories just edition RSS, for US for example edition then US, and the same for other industries. So we will focus only on geography. So from top stories that will be default for us till US. And basically the thing that we need to do, we actually need to create an adapter that will work with this RSS feed, and this adapter will be installed on the middle part on our MobileFirst platform server, and we will call this adapter, the specific procedure from this adapter from our controller, and display the data that adapter will return to us after the RSS feed call in our main page. So we will start with opening the terminal and navigating back to the root directory of our project and creating the adapter with command mfp.help, and then we will need to answer several questions. So adapter name will be CNN RSS. Type of adapter will be HTTP in our case. We don't want to create JSON store for now. We don't need USSD for now. And basically that's all. So what was added? Actually, if we will go back to our text editor and navigate to folder adapters, we will see that there is a folder now called CNN RSS. And inside you can see 3 files. So the most important for us is the first one, the XML file that had a description of what we are trying to call. So domain RSS CNN.com, protocol HTTP, port 80, and basically there is also information about timeouts and available procedures. So as you can see, by default is just like an example. It's already creating the CNN adapter for just showcase how to grab the news from RSS feed. So this is one of the reasons why we chosen RSS application to grab news from CNN for our first development showcase of a real app. So basically the second file that is important for us actually describe those procedures, get stories and get stories filtered, and it's named CNN RSS IMPL.js. So here you can see that actually we have a function called get stories, and as input parameter we have something called interest, and then basically it constructs the pass from a get pass function with passing interest inside. So this one actually constructing the link that we are trying to get. So as you remember from RSS, for example, for RSS news from Africa, you need to type edition, then underscore, then africa.rss. So this is what it's doing. So this interest is our parameter, like Africa or US or something like that. And if there is a parameter, it adds underscore to interest. If there is no parameter, it just does nothing. So it will be edition.rss, and that's it. And basically the result of our invocation will be the XML and methods that we will try to call the backend will be get. So this is the standard HTTP request with method get. And basically we also have here the second function that called get stories filtered, and this one also expect the XML in return, but it will do some transformation with XSL files. So you can find it nearby, filtered XSL, and this file actually represents how to filter the result from a backend, and in our case we will try to construct the JSON answer. So as you can see, we will have items, and there will be several items inside, and of course they will have the title, UID, link, description, and publication date. What we are missing here is the picture, but we will talk about this a bit later. So actually right now, after our adapter has been created, we can already test it. So for doing that, we need to do mfp build and deploy to build and deploy everything, including adapter. So it will be deployed on our server side. And we already should be able to see it in our console. So if we will go back to our Worklight console, we should now see one adapter that has been deployed, actually that goes to this RSS CNN. In order to test this adapter, we can use command line tools, and with mfp invoke our adapter with a specific procedure. So if we will have several adapters, we will have a choice first to select the specific adapter. In this case, we have only one, so the choice will be what procedure we would like to invoke. So as you remember, we have either get stories, either the filtered option of the same one. So let's just try get stories. We don't need any parameters right now, so just let's see how it's working. And this is the response that we are having. So we have a lot of articles, just as we expected. And let's also try to invoke the filtered version. And we also have the filtered versions. So just as was described, the ID, which actually is the link for us, publication date, title, description, and again link, which actually is almost the same. The same way, do the same thing as GUID. So on this moment, next thing that we will need to do actually to grab this data inside our application. So we now have an adapter, and we will need to invoke it. We need to call the specific procedure from our controller. So let's do that inside our file controllers.js and inside our app control. And basically we will do that in the following way. We will create a new function. Let's name it something like get data. And this will be, of course, part of our scope. So as an input parameters to this function, we will pass the same interest that we will prepare later on. And basically, the thing how it will work, we will use the client-side API for invoking the procedure. So this is the basic API to work with adapters. There is also a REST API introduced in 7.0, but we will talk about it in our later lab series with other examples. In CNN application, we will use the old basic API. So the way how it works, we will actually need to use well client invoke procedure, and then we will need to specify the parameters that we will need to pass, like adapter name. In our case, it's CNN RSS. Then we will need to pass the procedure name that we want to call, and we want to get it filtered. So in our case, it will be get stories filtered. And we also need to pass the parameters if there are some procedure call parameters. And in our case, it will be the same interest, just like this. And then there are several callbacks that we will use actually too. So on success. That will actually do something if the call was successful. So we just place here our response, and just for now let's do the login, like console log, and just specify the information like called the adapter, and here is our response that we received. And basically the same needs to be done for on failure callback. So in case on failure, we will just do the same function response, and we will just log that we failed to call the adapter. So just like this. Okay, so this function will actually call our adapter and get us the results in back by just logging it in our console. And in order for it to run, we actually need to invoke it somehow. So for now, we just will do the following. We will try to invoke it as soon as our controller will be initialized, and we won't pass anything here, so we'll just call it like this: scope get data, and that's all. So basically let's build and deploy it to see what's happening, if it's working or not. And while it's building, let's try to do a bit different kind of testing. So we were doing the testing using our emulator in the past, which is the good way because we are actually seeing the result on mobile device. But now let's try to do the same with a browser. So let's imagine it's pretty hard to work with a real device or emulator because it's pretty slow or something like that. So let's imagine that we don't have it for now. So the way how we can do it, we can actually create the new environment inside our application. So if we will go to apps, CNN, RSS, and do mfp add environment and specify, for example, desktop web browser, this will allow us to do the same things in the browser. So it will actually work as a web page, including all the possibilities to invoke the adapters and everything like that. So we only need to do build and deploy once again because we added new environment, and then after it will be completed, we will be able to see new environment here in our operational console. So if we will open it once again and navigate to our applications, you now can see that instead of only Android, there is a desktop browser application environment. And inside there is a URL how you can access actually that environment right in your browser. So this is the way how it works in a browser. And you can do even more if you will specify the inspect element. Because inside of Chrome and Chromium, you can do device. You can do an emulation of device by toggling the device mode and refreshing your page, which will actually try to show you how the app will look on a specific device. For example, if you will select Google Nexus 4 and refresh the page, it will try to show you how the device will look on Nexus 4. And what is important here, actually, if you go to console, you can see all the information from a console. And in our case, as you can see, it was trying to call the adapter. So we connected to MFP server, which is, first of all, good sign it's working from a browser. Then we were trying to invoke the adapter, and this is the response that we get after successful invocation. And basically this is my custom login that I've did with called the adapter message, and then inside we have the invocation result, and inside invocation result we have the items with each specific article that we received from our RSS feed. So actually this shows that our adaptive invocation works as expected, and it gives us the articles. And next thing that we will need to do, we will need actually to work with those articles and display them in our application. And we will do that by going back to our controller and assign our response to something. So let's imagine we have the array of data, well, items, for example, and the result for our response, I mean invocation result, will be assigned to these items. So just as you saw right here, so we have the invocation result inside which we have the items, and I want to assign everything that is under these items to scope items. And when I will do that, I will need actually to update changes in scope, so it will be done with scope apply, just like this. It's not hard. And basically, from a perspective of updating our items and working with them in our application, that's all. But we of course need to also prepare the presentation part. So our view, and we will do that by creating something called collection repeat. And this collection repeat will actually allow us to repeat this list with all items that are inside. So we will do it with ng. Sorry, it's just collection repeat. There is also another way to do it with ng repeat, which is a standard for Angular, but the collection repeat from Ionic team works a bit differently, a bit better, because ng repeat just shows everything that is in that array. And basically, if you have like 500 items, you won't see them on screen, but they will load and make your app a bit slow, especially if we will do the scrolling things. But collection repeat works a bit differently. It loads actually only what you see on your screen, and it dynamically tries to load new elements while you're scrolling. So it works much faster. And the way how we will do it, we will specify all item in items that we have, and this should repeat our list for amount of items that we have, and then we will need to display some kind of information from that items. And in our case, as you remember, we have the following. We have title, we have description, and we have pub date, which is our publication date. So that's more enough for us to start. So instead of title, we will use the following construction. We will use item dot title. Instead of description, we will use item description, and instead of publication date, we will use item pub date, which will actually show us the particular publication date for this particular item and all items. And one more thing that we will need to do inside our controller before we can assign actually anything to our scope items, it's good option. It's a good way to initialize them initially by just typing something like scope items. So just like this. Basically, let's try what we've done. Let's see if it works or not. So as you see, it's working. Actually, we have a list of those articles, those news, and we can see the details of each one. And basically the next thing that we will need to do, we'll actually need to pass that information from a specific item inside our details page to display the details for this item. And we will do that by modifying our call go-to. And as I was saying previously, it can be considered as the best practice, but it is the easiest way for us to start. And what we will do, we will just pass the whole item right here inside the go-to, and basically inside the controller where we have our go-to, we will actually do the following. We will add item here as the parameter that we are passing inside, and we will create something like some variable like current item. So it will be actually again the object, and we will assign to it everything that we have inside our item. And the same way as we were initializing those items, we will do the same with our current item. So the way how it will work, actually the item that we passed as an input will be transferred to current item, and then inside our details page we need to change this to current item title, then current item pub date, and then the description in the same way. So let's see if it's working. Okay, so we have our list, and if we are going inside, we have the details for a specific item, which is just exactly what we expected. So this part is also done, and now our app is more or less working, and on this step our lab is finished. Thank you.